Hey guys, what is up? Unrested back. Starting a little bit early, as you can see, it's still dark out. I started so early in the morning to record this. Gotta head out to work in just a bit, but it's a good type of work. It's painting a mural, so I'm excited to do that. I want to jump right into this and talk about not just what happened to J vloggers or Japan vlogging or Japan based vloggers, and will they ever really return? Because what we have today isn't exactly the same as when the whole recording in Japan started back in my day of 2016 or so, maybe farther back, I'm not sure. First of all, anyone who's unsure of what the term even means of J-vlogging, in the past it was confused. People would ask us why we called ourselves Japanese vloggers when we're not Japanese, but really J-vlogging meant you're a Japan-based vlogger, which I think today everybody understands, but back then we were always either like questioned by that or people were like angry about that, and we'd always have to explain it again and again. But like I said, I think today there's a more educated, culturally diverse, and more informed internet, whereas back then YouTube had just started, so it was kind of, people were really confused. They were even confused by the whole vlog word. When did it start? Well, like I said, it started even earlier than 2016. For example, Victor Give Me a Flake Man was one of the first. He actually, though, started not even doing vlogs about Japan. He was doing like, I think it was like atheist and political stuff at the beginning, but I'm sure he'll correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong about that. But then it did start to turn into just recording your everyday life of living in Japan, because it was such a unique thing back then. There wasn't a ton of us going to Japan or visiting or living in Japan, let alone recording it and then uploading it to the internet, because this was still a new idea. But that is how it started. Pretty much just people who had found themselves living in Japan, whether it be for a job, for schooling, for a whole lifestyle choice, whatever it may be. We picked up a camera, started filming, and we were shocked people were really interested to know about our situation. So we continued from there. Next one is about like who's left doing J-vlogging, who's left doing the old style talk about Japan. Well, I guess there's still me. I even still have my old walk and talk vlogs where I'll walk around an area of Japan, such as Nara or downtown Osaka. Of course, now I live between both countries of America and Japan, so half of them are filmed here in America, half of them are filmed in Japan, where I'm still roaming around. We've got people like Victor, who I just talked about. We got Hiko Simon. We got Tikio Sam still doing the same stuff of like just talking about situations in Japan, living life in Japan, things they run into, and how Japan is changing pretty much every day. When did it fade? When and why did it fade away is the next topic I'm covering here. And some of this I've already covered. For example, there was drama. There was drama that kind of tore the whole J-vlogging community apart, and a lot of people dropped out after that. I'm not going to elaborate on that too much because I've done multiple videos on it. If you're really interested in that series, check out the vlog. Check out the video in which I talk about Kanada Jin, her downfall, about the drama that happened during that time, and just other beefs that people had along the way. The most substantial one was the whole Kanada Jin downfall that I think broke apart a lot of the community. I'm not saying that was her fault. I'm just saying that's when I noticed a breakup in the community, because there was divided sides and stuff like that. But like I said, I'm not going to elaborate further. There's a whole almost like it's like 30 plus minutes of video on that. Check that one out to learn more. College and education ends. A lot of people, when we first started all this, were just in Japan for college or some sort of educational situation, such as, practicing Aikido or studying a martial art or learning the language. And once they hit the graduation point or their course study was over, they were done. I still get a lot of messages today for some channels people were really in love with that like lasted 4 years, and then the person disappeared from the internet. And they're like, what happened to this person? What happened to this? And I'm just like, well, they just finished college in Japan and they went back to their own country. Their plan never was to live in Japan forever. And of course, again, there's nothing wrong with that. That is, something we all do. Have a long period of education in our life before we are released to strive and thrive in the adult world of adulting in jobs. Nothing wrong with that. Money's another factor. As you know, the yen has become weaker and weaker. Pay in Japan has become worse and worse. I actually read an article recently that pay has become so bad for ALTs that some are starting to like campaign in unions and protest to the government of how bad their pay is, because it's way below living wages. It's insanely low. It's still somewhere around like $1,500 to $2,000 a month, which is not enough to like survive anything for too long in Japan. I mean, if a cheap apartment, like the cheapest is $700, and you're only making 2,000 a month, yeah, that's not feasible to live. So money has gotten worse and worse. Salaries have gotten worse and worse. I don't think Japan is ever really too interested in learning English, so that never will be like the cream of the crop as far as careers go in Japan. And these days, because the economy's gotten so much worse, learning English, which is more so considered a luxury rather than a survival tool or an absolute need, there's reduced students, there was the reduced aspects of education in that, and reduced careers and pay in that field. So it's becoming harder and harder as one of the staple jobs that keep people in Japan to have those people stay in Japan and continue to make videos when there isn't, sufficient support from those careers. Survival, just if you're looking at long-term survival, especially with a family, those who do start a family in Japan as a gaijin, their career opportunities are limited. And that's not necessarily their fault, and it's not necessarily Japan's fault. There's sort of this odd connect where most jobs in Japan don't rely on any sort of English speaking, non-native employer, which is understandable. A lot of jobs just don't need it. And if they don't need it, that means they don't have an opportunity or a position for you. At the same time, it's very hard for a gaijin, a foreigner, to transition to speaking fluent Japanese, living the full Japanese lifestyle, working sometimes those 12-hour days, and being able to dedicate themselves to a career long-term in Japan and also raise a family. A lot of us come from a Western background where you work 8 hours a day and you do get to spend quite a bit of time with the family you are paying for and funding. So we see it as kind of futile to work a job for a house and a family you never see. Whereas in Japan, the Japanese tend to think like this is just the way of life. It's shogunai, nothing can be done, must continue on, treading the way. Economic stability, Japan isn't really economically stable right now, as you probably know. Number one, they've got a big earthquake planned on the way. There might be, the mega Nankai trough earthquake coming, and having already sort of depleted a lot of their reserves and savings after their failure of the Olympics back in 2020, and just an economy that continues to spiral downwards. Things are not looking good as far as the future is concerned economically with Japan. The yen is becoming weaker and weaker, so even if you do get to a salary level that would be, double the average teacher salary of maybe Yonjuman, or what would be like the equivalent to $3,000, $3,500 or so, depending on the exchange rate today. I don't know what it is. I haven't looked it up. Still just not, you're not earning a lot. What you'd be earning in Japan is sometimes cut in half compared to what you'd be earning in the States. So it's like you can work extra hard 12-hour days to make half of what you would make in a Western country right now because the yen is, you know, weak and flattening out so much to the point that it's just kind of like, why work this hard for a currency that has become weaker and weaker every day? Chance of success. Again, I guess this kind of goes back into the whole job market thing. If there isn't great opportunities for great jobs and ways to move up and continue to build up a life in a country abroad, as people get closer and closer to middle age, they kind of wonder like, what is the point of, you know, continuing to work for the same salary or not climb up any kind of management ladder or not push forward into higher salaries and stuff like that as you start to accumulate things like buying property, starting a family, even having a vehicle and things like that. It's maybe a fun career still right out of college when you don't have a lot of responsibility yet. You're living on your own. You're okay with just renting a place, chilling out, having fun nights and stuff like that. I think coming to Japan and working those jobs is still, you know, a fun little outing for a year or so. But long term, there isn't a lot of there's not a lot of motivation to reach out and grab onto any long-term goals in Japan. And all these play a part in people staying long-term to continue to make J-vlogs in Japan. You know, it's not exactly a video or YouTube channel niche that grants one a ton of money. There are people who do make a lot of money by making videos in Japan as a foreigner, but they don't tend to be the J-vlog style, you know, on the street, man on the street, woman on the street, recording things, talking about their life and living there. And also that's kind of been somewhat saturated at the same time, like a lot of people have done that. So it's not going to be something where you're going to do it for the money, you're going to do it for the passion. And if the background money that supports you and keeps you living sound and safe in Japan isn't there either, then you're not just going to stay there just to earn $0 filming J-vlogs on the streets of Japan. So those two link up together. So next up, I went to a section I wrote called How Could It Possibly Return? Well, in a sense, it still exists. Like I said, there's still some of us who make J-vlogs and stuff like that. So that will have those few remaining members of the J-vlog community. New arrivals, there will always be new people coming to Japan to learn the language, to study a martial art, to go to college, and that's great. They'll always film new stuff, and maybe some of them will even come out with like ideas and covering certain things that we've never even thought of before. For example, I still don't think there's a very well-rounded channel that covers coming to Japan and living the life of a student. I think there's some people who've covered small aspects of that and talked about it, but like covered a full day of, you know, I wake up, I go to college, this is what my class is like, this is what the classroom in Japan looks like, this is what I get for you know, food at the cafeteria there, this is what I do for transportation and stuff like that. I think there still could be many opportunities to show other aspects that, like, I myself, I could have never covered that. I had already finished college when I got to Japan. So I still think there is more opportunities and more new vistas that people can visit as far as creating J-vlogs in Japan that are the new arrivals. Resurgent of old schoolers. Recently, I feel like recently YouTube has actually been doing something right for once, which is nice to see. And they have actually been promoting smaller channels. This is why I myself have been getting way more views, and my subscribers have gone back up rather than been plummeting like they had for almost 4 years. This is a good trend, I think. I think it's a good idea for YouTube. It opens up a wider variety for things people want to see. I'm still getting new visitors to this day, and that may encourage other old school J-vloggers to come back and try to tap into that resource, because you know, we're not gonna pretend like, well, I don't care if I ever become a popular YouTuber. I mean, we want our videos seen. we do it for the views. Anybody who says like, I just do this for the passion, I don't do it for the views. Everybody does it for the views. You don't make a video to not be seen, you know? It's like, musicians don't make music to not be heard. Like, you're making a certain media for its function. The function of a video is to be seen. So we like the views, we want the views motivate us. More old schoolers might come back for those views. The last, but I don't know, this is kind of just completely theory based. A need for connection post AI. I think one of the biggest things that J-bloggers in general offer is a way to tap into the ethos of the real human experience of living in Japan. And with the rise of like highly overproduced documents and documentaries, not documents, and AI based videos, algorithmically chosen topics and stuff like that, I think the one small strength that J-bloggers in general still have is that human connection. We're still people who talk about real life emotions, feelings, our thoughts on life in Japan, the things that make us happiest, the things we enjoy the most about Japan, the things that anger us about Japan, and especially those of us who try to keep it balanced as far as like, there's things done completely wrong. There's things that are done way amazing and make our own countries look like antiquated old school countries, but Japan does amazing. But there's still things Japan needs to fix that are absolutely inefficient, and we don't know why they keep doing it. They keep a balance like that where they don't just say, Japan, the most wonderful country, you should come live here, it's amazing, life is heaven in Japan. And at the same time, the Ryan Boundless of the J-Vlog community aren't there talking about how life is hell in Japan. You got that balance, and I feel like that's a real human connection people need to hear and enjoy more than having things AI based or algorithmically offered to them or overly produced, which I feel like the documentary style videos are the ones that kind of shine a light on Japan and this sort of paradise type setting where everything is amazing. Look how advanced the Japanese are. They're coming out with robots to serve you at restaurants and stuff like that. Whereas like, most of us will talk about the real life stuff of like, the ward office doesn't have computers and still writes everything down in books. And immigration still keeps all the records in like old paper files and things like that. So I feel like that balance is kind of the best for a J-vlogger and also the best for human connection with a J-vlogger that will maybe help us beat AI in the long run. I'm not sure. Again, like I said, that's just a theory. What is the future of making videos in Japan? Again, this is a completely theoretical section of my video of just saying like, where could it go from here? Well, there could be more AI based videos. I have started to see this rise of like people having text to speech based videos that were first written in text by AI and then sent to a text to speech bot that just kind of reads it out. I hope these don't become overly popular because I feel like they're cold, stiff, and like pretty wrong for the most part. AI still isn't perfect and makes some decisions and approximations that are incorrect. Some stuff I've heard before, I'm like, that doesn't happen in Japan. This doesn't exist. I saw one recently about like how Japan has the best bathrooms ever, and it's true. Japan does have nice toilets, the Toho toilet that has all these electronic functions, but it also has one of the worst toilets ever called the Washiki Benjo, which you literally squat over a hole in the ground. They're becoming less and less popular. They're disappearing from Japan, but you should balance it by talking about the worst toilets Japan has too. If you're going to make a video like that, balance your video. Fakers and takers, ugh. Okay, so once in a while, I'll catch a video where someone who's like these world travel videos, I think these are one of the worst, is like they go to multiple places, like every week they're in a new country, and all they do is get like the briefest glance of a country and just decide like they're an expert on it and talk about all this stuff that they don't understand anything about. I saw one recently where this guy was like, yo, we're gonna connect up with the Yakuza while we're in Japan. And he pretended to talk to guys who were Yakuza, which, first of all, they were like young guys with like tattoos all over their neck and their face and everything, which does exist in Japan. There are people like that. But like the real Yakuza are old men. There are new gangs that are taking over, like, um, crime syndicates and stuff like that in Japan. Most of them are not Yakuza based. The Yakuza are actually kind of like falling apart and splintering into like nothingness because they've never kept up with technology. And also just things like phone hacks and like, social engineering to get money out of old ladies and stuff like that. That was the work of the Yakuza, and that's just becoming less and less prevalent as smartphones kind of stop spam calls and stuff like that. But the real Yakuza are mostly just old men. They don't walk around in like gangster clothing and try to like promote themselves as gangsters. As you probably do know, they actually do wear like suits and stuff and dress kind of nice, hide their tattoos, and they just live a very old school way of life. And I saw this video where this guy, like, I guess he just met up with some people where he was like, I'll pay you to pretend like you're Yakuza. And he was like, I have a secret meeting with them in this elevator. And they're like all wearing like these crazy, like, faceless masks. And they're like, and he's like, now I'm here at the Yakuza base. And it's like, this is like, it would have been funny if it was comedy. Like, if it was like a satirical skit, I'd be like, oh, genius. This is hilarious. But this guy was just faking it with some random Japanese people he was talking to, and I guess he just like paid them some money to be like, "Hey, can you pretend like you guys are gangsters or something like that?" It was the worst video I'd ever seen. And these are like the fakers and the takers who come to Japan for just a brief moment, pretend they know what they're talking about, and then just spiel bullshit about things they don't understand whatsoever. I've seen people who like just visit shrines and temples and stuff like that, and they don't know the difference between a shrine or a temple, and they make up all these religions. They're like, this Hindu shrine, and it's like, this is Buddhist. Like, this one's Shinto. Like, what do you talk Hindu shrine? Like, just read the plaque on the side of the temple or the shrine to find out what it is. Most of those are in English. They're World Heritage sites and usually have like multiple languages that talk about what they are. Like, do the briefest amount of research. So I think those are still going to be videos that keep showing up until a lot of those goofballs get debunked. Document quality uploads. These are sometimes good, sometimes bad. For example, the company Vice, Tokyo Vice, or Vice as you know them, did just these prolifically dodgy videos that were not fact-based whatsoever, just about like everything from like people prostitution in Japan, or like people reading anime and becoming sexual deviants and stuff like that. And then they were so poorly researched and so poorly backed by sources that they refused to even release them in Japan. Like, they blocked out Japan from seeing a documentary about their own country because they knew right away people would show up and be like, can you like show us these statistics that you're talking about anime leading to violence and stuff like that. This is some of the worst sides of documentary videos coming out of Japan. There are some good ones that kind of balance things out. Like, for example, when they talk about like hikikomori or shut-ins in Japan, about the stressful work hours in Japan. When they talk about how having a social life sometimes can be brutal in Japan. And then, there's other ones that celebrate some of the things Japan does very well. For example, handling natural disasters, handling earthquakes, doing things like, not having a ferociously violent military and having the self-defense force. There's all kinds of good type of stuff that some documentaries cover, but there are some that are kind of, this evil balance of trying to talk poorly about Japan with little to no research, those are kind of scary to see because I feel like they can really turn a blind eye to the facts and just kind of spiel off any kind of dialogue or agenda that they have in their mind without actually putting forward proof, sources, or background. And when it's just some stupid idiot like me talking in front of a camera, who's just like, guy who visited Japan, lived in Japan. It's okay if we're not coming at you with the hard facts, bunches of sources, and calling ourselves the official documentary of Japan. We're just one guy. I always tell people if they ever have, they're like, I don't know about what you're talking about in Japan. I've never seen. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't just listen to some guy on YouTube. You should go look up the sources and stuff, or the things I talk about, or the background things I talk about. Google it, read news on it, read a Japanese newspaper. Don't listen to some guy on a microphone in front of a camera. But when you're a documentary, you're supposed to be like news. You're supposed to be like a report on it. And we hope that when you do that, you come with facts and background checks and things like that. And it's scary when you see companies like Vice do these things where they just make up BS about Japan and know that it's BS to the point that they refuse to even show it to the country they're making it about, because they know their entire name will be trashed once people start calling out true facts and stuff like that. Okay, what else do we got? The other future ideas for what might become relevant in Japan, what might become the next wave of videos made about Japan. Idols becoming fluent. So I have seen some, when I say idols though, I don't mean like pop idols, like the old school J-pop idols. I mean like YouTube idols. They call them an idol no matter what they're an idol of. Okay, you can be a Grabia idol, which is just like you're a model of clothing and stuff like that. When big YouTubers in Japan start to become more and more popular, they reach like a level, like they plateau, and then they're like, I can't get any bigger because I do my entire channel in Japanese. How can I grow my channel even bigger? They start to realize, okay, the international language is English. If I start to have an English version of my channel, maybe I can grow beyond 2 million subscribers. I could get into the hundreds of millions of subscribers because I'll go beyond just Japan. I'm starting to see that happen where they've actually started to learn English to grow their channel, which I think is an awesome thing. I wish more Japanese, for real Japanese based, native Japanese, would make more international channels that introduce more people to Japan, the culture of Japan, the things about Japan, beyond just us foreigners visiting there and then reporting back, I saw this, here, let me tell you in English. I would like to see more channels of Japanese people speaking English internationally, introducing their country and talking about the good things, the bad things, and everything in between in English. Whereas, there's still very popular YouTubers in Japan who are Japanese based, their channel's completely in Japanese, and they're very popular in Japan, but they always plateau because there's really only one country that speaks Japanese, Japan. So, when you have a country of 120 million people, you have a limit on how many subscribers you'll ever get, especially when most of the population is elderly and they don't watch YouTube. I know some people always say what about Guam? Guam speaks Japanese. Come on. Guam is not a completely Japanese-based country. It's not even a country to begin with. It's a state that's not officially part of America, however that works. What else we got? Okay, and I think one of the last things is Japan, as their economy continues to go downward. My hope is one day that the government wisens up, stops being stubborn, and actually starts to support the growth of their population rather than making it harder and harder to have a kid in Japan. But if they don't do that and become more desperate for outside funds, maybe there'll be more tourist channels on Japan that teach you more about places you could visit outside of just Tokyo. You know what I mean? I would like to see more channels that talk about smaller spots in Japan that are less visited but very culturally appropriate, and talk about all this amazing, shrines and things like Mount Koya. No one ever talks about Mount Koya, but there's esoteric Buddhism out there with this amazing graveyard and amazing temples and shrines and everything like that. The whole town, it looks amazing, and I've made a video about it before. I've done a whole video on it, but me, a small little channel, isn't going to make a big splash as far as tourism is concerned. No one's going to my channel to be like, should I visit Japan? Let me ask unrested. I'm mostly dealing with an old school crowd that's stuck around with me, which I very much appreciate, but for the most part, that's not going to get widely seen. Whereas if Japan itself makes highly produced videos advertising some of their best spots that nobody talks about, that would be amazing. I think they could get, at least some funds to help support Japan better and maybe grow the economy and make life better. Okay, so what's missing? What's missing from J-vlogging for it to come back? Like, what is the gaps now? Well, as much as some people may hate to hear me say this, there's no hater channels anymore, and I feel like hater channels kind of balance thing out. And when I say hater channels, I mean like the old school Ryan Boundless, the guy who hated living in Japan. I feel like those channels make a good balance with J-vlogging. There are those channels that talk about only the hard things about Japan, only the rough things about surviving in Japan. And, I touch on topics once in a while that I'm like, Japan really is behind the times on this. Like, for example, when I talk about psychiatric treatment in Japan and how it's like still in the early 1950s where they just recently decided, hey, wait, ADHD is real. You guys, this is going to be crazy, but we actually do have kids with ADHD in Japan. We've been denying this for ages, but ADHD is a real thing. Or just like, clinical depression. People can actually be so depressed they need to be in a hospital. That's crazy. Can you guys believe this? Oh my God, maybe we should get these people help. Um, like, that's kind of small topics I've touched on, but I want to see the hater videos that like complain about everything in Japan, because it gives a better balance to the whole community. And I know people will sometimes get pissed off when they see these where they're like, it's not that bad. If it's that bad, why don't you go home? But I feel like these things do balance it out. Even sometimes I find them like, cringy, or like I'm kind of like, that's a little bit too far to complain about. I still think they have a balance to the JVlog community and put Japan in more of a gray area rather than completely pitch black or completely, a bright, happy, endless nirvana, right? You got to have that balance. A fresh look or a new perspective on Japan. There is still so many things about Japan that I have missed, that I have not covered, that there's a gap in information about. No matter how many of us exist, there will always be new things people can talk about. I would love to see somebody go around and study apprenticeships that are dying out in Japan. There are so many apprenticeships, topiary arts, katana forging, blacksmithing, old school printmaking, things like that. Like, these apprenticeships are dying out. They don't pay money. They don't pay good money. They don't pay like a living wage. So they're starting to die out in Japan. I wish someone would go out and record these. I don't have access or the time to do such a thing, but I wish someone would go there and do that, whether it be like a full documentary making super company, or just, the little old J vlogger who grabs a iPhone and goes out there and checks this stuff out. I want to see a fresh new look, a new perspective on Japan that even I haven't imagined. I want to be surprised. And last but not least, I wish there was more like bilingual presenters. I know some already exist. I watch them, Dogen and PDR and stuff like that, who are amazing. They make great videos. They're good at what they do. But I want to see a wider breadth. I want to see even more people doing that. It would be amazing. Last but not least, my hope for the future of J-vlogging. What are my final hopes? I hope there's more crossovers, in the sense that I hope more Japanese YouTubers start to work internationally with other presenters from other countries. I feel like that's never really done. I feel like, Japanese YouTubers work a lot of times and collab a lot of times with other Japanese YouTubers, but I rarely see them reach out to a Western YouTuber and collab with them. I want to see more stuff like that. I just feel like that could expand the breadth, width, and knowledge and presentation of both sides, the Western and Eastern side. I want to see more collabs like that. I want to see Japan recover. I want to see Japan do better, and hopefully recover to a point where there's better stuff we can talk about. I would love to see the country celebrated in a way that shows that they're making strides to, move forward with solving their population problem. their economic problem, their psychiatric and psychological problems. That's a big hope. Traditions not ruined. I hope. I have right here, it says traditions not ruined and asshole live streamers stay away. I hope for the future that we don't have any more of these idiots like Johnny Somali who come to Japan and ruin video making for people like us who just want to record quietly and calmly and talk about the country without going around and bothering the population. I want to see those kind of YouTubers, kick streamers, whatever they are, out of any kind of video making. I don't want to see them support it. I don't want to see them promote it. I don't want to see them in the future of video making in Japan. They are idiotic, insolent, rude, and ruin the whole video recording experience for everyone. Not to mention make life hell for the people who are native to Japan. I hope for the future that no matter what the country may be, these kind of people are put to a stop, or the retaliation or consequences for these people are so great that it makes it infeasible to try to be this kind of BS streamer who's just out to cause problems and troll the world. If there's one thing the world could use less of, it's trolling. And that about covers it. I guess I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on all of this. I'd love to hear what you think as far as like what you'd like to see for the future of J-vlogging, who you miss from J-vlogging, what you think isn't covered anymore, what else is not a topic that you've seen that you wish more people would do. And I'd love to see your comments below. Any comment that you put down, even some people just leave an exclamation mark, thank you, just do that. It helps a lot with the algorithm. Hitting like or dislike helps a bunch. I'm always thankful for your subscription and your views. And if you want to see more of what I make here, you can become a member for only $1.90 a month, which gets you one extra video every week, 4 full videos every month for just $1.90. I want to give a shout out right now to my members, because I have quite a few new ones. Thomas 5K, Mitchell, Knox Leon, John Manbob, YF, Sriracha, Javier Lucius, Dada HT, Luna Incola, Steve Ring, Conover Watley, Zoila Lulu, Harry Richardson, Jink 640, Blind Man Travels, Jones G, Collective Commentary, Dildo Vagins, Mio, Max Ren, Oz Dev, Colin Kilpatrick, Alejandro Cisneros, blah 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 blah, Humble Monk, Andre Sanchez, Lehman, Jay, Aaron Spooner, Eviscerations, Ryan, Kaiser Grindel, Bridget, Andy, Carolyn Markey, Impressive Tony, Matt Lee, Silverstitch 28, Joseas Casullius, Draz Creates, Light Lolouch, Smile Kita 13, Wormself, Chrissy Meow, Prorasu, Humble Judo Lord, Citrus, Fat Jaskins, Sprinkly Donut, Yodadu, Ricardo Contreras, Anna Loki, Slayer Duck, Jonas Slocum, Ice Cold, Reinhard or Die Trying, Trek Nick, and I Am Sandpaper. Guys, thank you again so much. Members video is going to be one day late. As you do know, it is Labor Day. I am working this whole weekend on a giant painting, on a giant mural. So I will be up early and out late working on this. Your video may be delayed by one day. I hope that's okay, members, and look for it on Monday. Until next time, I've been Unrested, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.